Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Joe Biden's going to be going to a historically black college university, and the white media is saying that this is going to be the beginning of a turnaround for his political fortunes. He's supposed to be going to Morehouse College, but there's concerns, big concerns. That from the staff of Morehouse, no less. They're concerned that if Biden goes to Morehouse, he's going to be protested by both students and even Morehouse faculty. There's real concerns about that, they say. Finally, I think, these HBCUs are finally standing up for black issues, and they're going to let Biden know that they have not forgotten his decades of anti-black legislation and rhetoric. Who are we fooling? We know what's happening. They're going to be concerned about Biden and the war in Gaza. If there's any protest, that's what it's going to be about. Keep in mind, Morehouse is supposed to be an institution of higher learning. And instead, these HBCUs are being revealed to be nothing more than the pathetic party schools we thought them to be. Asinine social clubs where certain wannabe talented 10th Negroes go to network and to try to find government jobs. Something in a consulting gig for a white corporation if they can manage it. The Democrats have run this play before, and it doesn't work. This is all about circumventing the righteous anger of younger black voters, and by younger, what I'm talking about is 50 and under, actually, as opposed to the olders. This is all about trying to figure out, how do we work around these guys? How do we find a way to make inroads to the black community and get those votes without having to deal with the real challenges that are coming from these black people who are actually making demands? The young black people who Biden and the Democrats are hoping to get to vote for him, they don't go to Howard, and they have no respect for these failed and crumbling frauds. And the young black people who do go to the HBCUs, they simply aren't numerous enough to matter. Kamala Harris had her sorority sisters stomping for her failed presidential campaign. How'd that work out? The HBCUs are dead. They stopped giving a rip about black people a long time ago. Today, they've been reduced to nothing more than an abject embarrassment. The people who run these institutions, they don't give a care about black people to begin with. They have thoroughly and totally abandoned their so-called commitment to black excellence or even black interest. This is why the HBCUs are prioritizing everybody else, because they're looking to become nothing more than the side office for white power. There is absolutely nothing you can say about Gaza that you can't say about black America several times over. Oh, you want to say that the Israelis have leveled Gaza? Have you seen what gentrification and so-called highway projects, among other public works domains, have done to black neighborhoods? The Israelis have killed tens of thousands of Gazans, you say. Well, tens of thousands of black people die in America every single year from things like deliberate, intentional lack of medical care alone. Even more when you consider the terrible and deprived living conditions that we're forced to endure. You say the Israelis have killed thousands of Palestinian babies and their mothers. Have you seen the black infant mortality rate in the U.S.? It's more than double what it is for any other group. And as for the babies' mothers, the black maternal mortality rate is 3 times higher than it is for white women. It's sad but true. Even among black circles where we're supposed to know better, there's precious little interest in this issue, and it is a singular issue. You cannot separate the black infant mortality rate from the black maternal mortality rate. These are not coincidences. This is state policy. This is genocide being carried out against black people. And yet, for some dang reason, you don't see the HBCUs standing in Biden's face and telling him you got to do something about this. Oh, and on a side note, people are talking about how there's a looming famine in Gaza. Food insecurity is highest for black Americans, and we are routinely killed by the state with impunity or by racist citizens at will, which is pretty much the same thing. The state allows them to do it. So there's absolutely nothing you can say about what's going on in Gaza that you cannot say about black America, except we've been dealing with these problems a hell of a lot longer. Our problems didn't start last October. Our problems started in 1619. So, why am I seeing people tripping over their shoelaces at these HBCUs to stick up for Palestine when those same Palestinians immigrate to the U.S. and are as racist toward black Americans as anyone else? This is where the so-called best and brightest black students go to, the HBCUs, and their professors, who are only too eager to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians, who are also supposed to be the best and brightest we have to offer. Look at what they're doing. They prioritize everyone and everything except us. When Biden shows up to Morehouse, he should be getting an earful about reparations. He should be getting lectured about punishing hospitals for the way that black patients are treated. Literally from the cradle to the grave, they're waging a race war against us through the medical system. But instead, it's going to be about people on the other side of the globe that these HBCU students and professors will be talking about. Nothing that happens in Israel or Palestine is going to affect white supremacy, and it's certainly not going to forward black empowerment. So for the white powers that be, it's a nice shiny object to distract people with. Ultimately, no matter how things shake out over there, it's not going to change the status quo. But for black people to ignore our own desperate situation and focus on everybody else, that's suicidal. During the Black Lives Matter protests, there were Palestinians and Palestinian sympathizers who were out there, you'll recall. These activists insinuated themselves among the BLM marches and demonstrations, and they made it a point to hold up signs that said, Palestinian lives matter. Now keep in mind, when somebody does that, that is no different than somebody coming to a BLM rally and holding up a sign that says all lives matter, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking the focus off of black people and they're diluting it. They're diffusing it. They're trying to disperse the energy. Black people being heinously slaughtered in the streets, and yet these activists, they came among our rallies and our demonstrations, and their only priority was to make themselves the center of attention if they could. So why is it that whenever there's these demonstrations or marches, these huge campus rallies like at Columbia, you don't see black people trying to use the spotlight that the Palestinians are getting and instead divert it onto black people in our plight? Why aren't we doing that? Maybe we should. It's only fair, right? And to ignore black people's political plight is no victimless crime. By doing that, by ignoring us, these HBCUs are sending the message that the so-called most educated Negroes in America don't care about black people. They don't even care about themselves. Biden's going to be allowed to have a backdrop of a bunch of smiling, preening Negroes who will lend their melanin to the false narrative that Joe Biden's on black America's side, that black people just love this guy. And if black people have any sort of criticisms or critiques or complaints, well, it's not about black people. We're fine with how Joe Biden's treating us. It's these other people, if only he would prioritize them. You see, that's the problem with the so-called talented 10th. They all want to be like these sellout Negroes you see on white cable stations and in the government. They know that their job is really to support white liberals' pet issues. You can pretend to stick up for black people, but only if you speak in vague terms about unimportant things. By that I mean you have to say that abortion is a black issue. You have to say that immigration is a black issue. You have to say that Dr. King wanted transgender bathrooms. That's what they go to these schools to learn. How to lend their melanin to everyone else's cause except for black people's. How to use their melanin as a calling card so they can get in good with the white powers that be. So that's why Biden's not concerned about going to Morehouse. There's nothing going on there that's going to threaten white supremacy. Mark my words. There will be some sort of resolution to the war in Gaza, as there always is. And as always, it will quickly become water under the bridge for Muslim voters. But black voters' problems will still remain. And nobody will be talking about that, except for the new voices of black media. And just in case you do bring attention to black people's plight, those same Muslim activists who are trying to jump out in front of the BLM demonstrations, they'll be right back out there again trying to overshadow anything that black people are saying. That's not what an ally does. And ignoring the plight of our own people isn't what leaders do either. But it is what these Negroes and these HBCUs do. This is why white corporations and the government and these political parties recruit so heavily from the HBCUs. At this point, they've become wholly owned subsidiaries of the white power structure. You know, there was a time when the HBCUs were actually prestigious, though that was a long time ago. And their prestige was not because they had the money or the power of their white counterparts in the white Ivy Leagues, but because the HBCUs genuinely had potential. In time, they could have become a springboard for the black community to build the kind of economic, social, and political institutions that we need. Hebrew schools gave rise to Jewish-owned brokerage firms and hospitals. What have the HBCUs given rise to? Nonsense like this. They've become sellout factories, cranking out useless, self-interested tools, black faces serving white power. They used to be prestigious. Now they're just a punchline, and not a very funny one. We don't need any more campus step shows. Dancing, shucking, and jiving are not valuable, but it is about the only thing the HBCUs are offering anymore. Obviously, Biden thinks going to Morehouse is a way to reach young black voters who are against him for his reprehensible behavior over the decades. Well, that's not going to appeal to us by going there. We don't fall for symbolism. We want the substance. He thinks that going to a black venue and having some Negro faces behind him smiling and clapping for him like trained seals, that's going to help him go over the heads of the new black media. It's going to help him to circumvent the righteous anger of the black community, but it's not going to work. Kamala Harris began her own failed presidential campaign at Howard University, you'll recall, and she even made her announcement on MLK Day, so she was going super extra with pathetically trying to trick black people into supporting her. And how did that work out? Did she make it to the White House? She didn't win a single primary. Hell, she barely even placed for the debates. It was one humiliation after the other, and she deserved it. And Biden? Well, he needs to get the same treatment that Mike Bloomberg got when he tried the same scam. Negroes who allowed their melanin to be lent to all of these anti-black racists, they need to be checked. They need to be called out. And that's where the new voices of black media come in. And when I say new voices, I mean you. Oh, there should be protesting and demonstrations when Biden shows up, but it should only be on the behalf of what black people are needing and what it is that we're not getting. Anything else is just a distraction. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Stay Positive, Melvin Johnson, Kenneth Johnson, Chevalier Foster, and Monique Neely. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.